Welcome to another episode of Mountain Standard True Crime. I'm true crime addict Michelle Carlson. Thank you for watching and/or listening. Our episodes are on YouTube and Spotify. In this episode, I will be sharing the true crime story of the sicko Dr. Stephen Matthews and his victims. In 2019, Dr. Stephen Matthews was a 32-year-old physician, board certified in cardiology and internal medicine, and was practicing medicine in Denver, Colorado area. That is the first year Matthews is known to have been drugging and sexually abusing women who he was meeting using dating apps. And here we go. In 2019, Dr. Stephen Matthews was a cardiologist who was active in the dating scene in the Denver, Colorado area. He was meeting most of his dates through online dating apps. One of his dates, who became one of his victims, stated that she thought Matthew checked a lot of her boxes. He was active, good-looking, and had a good career as well as a dog. He invited the women to specific locations, sometimes somewhere public, such as a bar, and sometimes his home, where he drugged the women after gaining their trust. He often got women to go to his home with him, using the excuse that he needed to let his dog out. And then they would agree to stay for a drink, and then we go from there. This disturbing case first made headlines in April 2023 when a victim came forward with her story of meeting Matthews on a dating app, then getting into a hot tub with him during a date, and then losing consciousness for several hours. She did not immediately go to the police with her story. However, after learning that a friend's mother had a similar encounter with Matthews a few years prior, she reached out to the authorities. Multiple other women came forward with similar stories, leading to a trial, including accusations from 13 women. Matthews was released from custody on a $50,000 bond for the April arrest. The following month, investigators said they believe Matthews may have been involved in other incidents and urged any other potential victims to contact the Denver police. Matthews was arrested again in 2023 after 9 more women went to the police with similar allegations, with some dating back to 2019. They said they had met Matthews online, then met him for drinks and lost some of their memory of the incident. Matthews was ultimately charged with 53 counts of sexual assault on 13 different women. He pleaded not guilty. In 2020, Matthews was living in an uptown Denver apartment building where his neighbors said he was, quote, a charmer, but also, quote, narcissistic and arrogant. She told CBS News Colorado, almost every time I came home, there were girls' shoes outside his apartment. She said there was a constant stream of girls in, girls out. It was just a lot of girls, and the girls that came out also didn't seem sober, but we all just assumed they were drunk. Another neighbor of Matthews turned over to Denver police detectives a picture she took of a woman appearing to be passed out, topless, on his doorstep. The woman was wearing only a pink bikini bottom and appeared to be in an uncomfortable position. Matthews went to trial in July 2024. The trial lasted almost a month long and included testimony from 60 witnesses and what was referred to as a mountain of evidence. All of the women named in connection with the charges came forward to police at some point, whether it was immediately or years later after seeing the news of his arrest and the similar attacks he was then alleged of. Their testimonies were disturbing and very sad. All of the victims said they had memory loss. Some woke up in the middle of the assaults, but were too foggy to react, they said. One woman recalled horrific snapshots as she became conscious and then blacked out again during the assault. In some cases, Matthews filmed it. Another woman in a haze, but knowing she had to escape, ran outside barefoot in below freezing temperatures. A few of the women mentioned that they were kicked out of his house afterward and left to fend for themselves under the influence of a mystery drug. One woman told investigators that she remembered only waking up in Matthew's home naked and handcuffed to the sofa while vomiting. One victim said she spent just 1 hour and 27 minutes with Matthews, and within that time frame, he drugged her, filmed her, assaulted her, and put her into a rideshare car headed home with a head wound and her underwear ripped. She said Matthew's defense team played 13 minutes of footage showing him setting up his phone to record a video, climbing on top of her, and assaulting her. She had to watch it during the trial in a room full of strangers, she said. Now, I'm not sure why the defense would show this. It seems more suitable for the prosecution, but I was not there, so I don't know. One woman recalled texting Matthews to ask why her underwear and tights were ripped open. He gaslit her, she said. According to Health.com, gaslighting behavior can vary from person to person, but ultimately, the goal is to make you doubt yourself and reality. Common examples of gaslighting include they deny things that happened when you bring it up to them. They may say something like, "That never happened. I don't know what you're talking about." They dismiss or trivialize your feelings and make you feel like they're not important by saying things like, "You're being dramatic." They question your reality by saying things like, "You don't remember things correctly," or "You're imagining it." Unfortunately, I could talk about gaslighting all day long, including some personal experiences, but we won't be doing that today. Needing closure and answers, this woman went to his house, and when Matthews offered her a drink, she refused. Within minutes, he said he needed to go back to work and kicked her out. Another woman who worked in the school at the time said she loved the students so much that she went to her job at the school the day after her assault. She recalled sitting next to the children while unknowingly shaking off the effect of a date rape drug. The aftermath of the assault was different for each of the women, but followed similar themes. They blamed themselves. They recoiled socially and became paranoid around other men. Their careers wavered and sometimes fell apart. Multiple women brought up their struggles with suicidal thoughts. One said she couldn't bear to stay in Colorado anymore. She said, "I still haven't released all the guilt I felt that day. It feels like my biggest mistake, but it wasn't my mistake. It wasn't even Stephen's mistake. It was his pattern," another woman said. During closing arguments, a prosecutor said, "This is an obvious case of a man who feels entitled to perpetrate against women for his own benefit, by robbing them of memory, by robbing them of bodily autonomy, and by impairing their memories only to have them come in and testify and criticize them for the fact that their memories don't exist." The prosecution told jurors that they heard from almost 60 witnesses and around 500 pieces of evidence were shared during the trial. Meanwhile, the defense said that these large memory gaps would make it hard to prove the case beyond a reasonable doubt. Victim impact statements were heard from 21 people prior to the sentencing, including victims and family members and friends of the victims. "What you did is despicable," said the mother of one victim. She called Matthew's actions appalling and atrocious. She said, "You have imposed a life sentence on these women and their families." A victim's family member, who was also a practicing lawyer, said she was saddened and dismayed by the victim blaming, gaslighting, and disdain that the defense had for these women. Ridiculing them in the courtroom was an unnecessary infliction of pain, she said. A friend of a victim said the women who were victimized did nothing wrong, yet were put on attack and had their credibility, consent, and autonomy attacked by this defense. And this is exactly why more victims don't come forward to report sexual assaults, unfortunately. The jury in this case deliberated for more than 3 days before finding Matthews guilty of 35 different counts. On October 25th, 2024, Stephen Matthews was sentenced to 158 years in prison for drugging 10 women and sexually assaulting 8 of them. The victims and their families were in attendance for the sentencing and erupted in cheers at the news. The sentencing judge, Denver District Judge Eric Johnson, deemed Matthews a, quote, sexually violent predator who would likely harm someone else if released, eventually giving him the maximum sentence for his crimes. Judge Johnson also called Matthews a narcissistic monster and addressed him, saying in part, "You have diminished this world. You have dimmed many of its lights. You hurt our society, and it's a darker place because of you. You brought disgrace upon yourself. You brought disgrace upon that name that was given to you, that was pure and clean the day your parents gave it to you. You even managed to ruin dating applications. I mean, what should have been technology with a really fun upside, the opportunity to meet people you couldn't otherwise meet, maybe fall in love, maybe have a family. Now it's just something else for young girls and young women to fear as another danger zone." You know, Mr. Cohen, in your closing argument, you again mentioned that these women went to his apartment and they drank. Good Lord. I wish this trial had been videotaped, and I wish a tape of this trial could be played in every university and that everybody in this country could watch it, because we have been programmed to believe that victims will act a certain way. And if there's anything this case proved, beyond guilt, beyond reasonable doubt, was that how we think victims are going to react is 100% wrong. How we think they should act is completely misguided. And if anybody thinks they know how they are going to react until they are faced with the pressure and in that situation, you have no idea. You're completely wrong. I so love these statements made by the judge, and I feel like they're spot on, probably, of a lot of trials for sexual assault. Former Denver District Attorney Mitch Morrissey said, quote, "This guy is one of the most prolific serial rapists in the history of the state of Colorado." Prosecutor Victoria Kelly was far less empathetic, and she said she's certain there are dozens or more victims. Considering that the National Sexual Violence Resource Center says that 40% of rapes were reported in 2017 and only 25% in 2018, I'm sure she's right. Other statistics reported include 1 in 5 women in the United States experience a completed or attempted rape in their lifetime. 24.8% of men have experienced some kind of sexual violence in their lifetime. About half, 51.1%, of female victims of rape reported being raped by an intimate partner, and 40.8% by an acquaintance. Over half, 52.4%, of male victims report being raped by an acquaintance, and 15.1% by a stranger. The National Sexual Assault Hotline is free and confidential. Call 1-800-656-HOPE if you are a victim of sexual assault to be connected to resources in your local area. Please, people, when you're on the dating or hookup scene, do not meet with someone alone until you know them well. Meet up in public places and always let someone know where you are and who you are with. I have a dear friend who recently went through a divorce, and she had me track her iPhone when she was going on initial dates, and she always met the men in a public place, and she never let them know where she lived until she ended up in a serious relationship with one of the guys. Always err on the side of caution. And as I have talked about before, trust your gut. If something doesn't feel right, get out. Just leave. You don't owe an excuse or an explanation to anyone. If you haven't yet, please like this episode, follow us on Spotify, and subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mountain Standard True Crime. It's free, and it really helps us out. We would also really appreciate it if you would share our episodes with anyone you think might enjoy them. Thank you for watching and or listening. Please always be aware of your surroundings and stay safe. We'll catch you next time for another episode of Mountain Standard True Crime. Take care.